Talks, episode 4, the quarantine edition.
The quarantine edition. Thank God we here, man.
Yeah.
Make it happen no matter what. This is hustle. This is the hustle time, you know?
Yeah, man. Hella high water. We're both obviously in our respective apartments right now.
Right.
Man, I guess I just want to get your perspective. Like, how have you been feeling? I mean, I hate to even keep talking about this. I feel like it's like exhausting to keep hearing conversations about coronavirus and all this stuff. But the reality is there's not much else even going on in the world, right? That's like it's our new reality. Right. So I'm just kind of curious about your perspective during this whole thing.
Well, for me, it's like there are few events that have happened, at least in me and yours existence, that the whole world pays attention.
Right.
And the whole world focuses in and is basically all on the same page. And I don't think we've ever experienced something to this magnitude. I mean, I was alive for 9/11. I was alive for certain presidencies and the impact that has on the world. But I mean, for this one, I think it's just like, it's a trip because this one event has like connected countries, languages, barriers, and there's this sharing of information. And like, I guess like the point of human existence to a certain extent too, just like, yo, this is what we're going through. This is what we've done to help. You implement it right away so that you don't go through it as bad as we did. And that just kind of like trickling over. And it's been a trip, bro. It's been a trip. I don't think humanity has faced this in a long time. You know what I mean? And I think for me, there's a certain level of a perspective you have to have in life when it comes to what you are in control of and what you're not in control of.
Right.
And a lot of that like self-discipline, that comes with self-discipline. And in this, it's just like, yo, there is so little that I'm in control of. My ability to be outside, my ability to like ward off like disease, like directly, like it's not like I can get affected and be like, oh no, get away. Like, you know,
right.
I'm kind of victim at some point and then you hospitalize and, you know, medicate. But I think what I am in control of is kind of like what we've been talking about before, which is information, my energy, my peace, like how I'm using my body and how I'm like using the energy. And when I am feeling focused, what do I decide to focus on? And just like, you know, make the best of it in that way. So
right.
It's been tricky, bro. I mean, I feel, and it's also a trip because I just moved to Harlem. So like this shit kind of all happened as soon as we got like the majority of our shit all in the crib.
Right.
So it's like the new crib got experience with like it's a new space and then the new experience. And man, I don't know, being a human being, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, man, because I feel like it's kind of like, it's opened my eyes to so many things. I feel like, I think I talked about this on my Instagram, but we're seeing like this humbling that I think was super necessary for humankind, you know?
Yeah.
I think we all, myself included, we took so much for granted, you know what I mean? And now that we're being forced to slow down, we realize how good we really had it.
Wow.
Yeah, and you're seeing people react in different ways. Some people are coming together and using this as a time to spread positivity amongst one another, collaborate, and dive into their art. And other people are using it as a time to sort of just rebel for the sake of rebelling. And it's one thing that I find very interesting. And as a DJ, I've noticed it because, you know, I'm in the clubs every weekend, and you see it is like this level of escapism that so many people rely on.
Damn.
And it's interesting now that when that's taken away from them, how they react. You know what I mean?
What do you escape to? It's like
right, because it's like I see it as a DJ every weekend. People are getting drunk to escape the trial and tribulation of their week. You know, they're unhappy with
hating the way they make money.
Right.
So it's the end of the tourist cycle. I'm in the bars and clubs.
You see now that they're like forced to go inward because they have no choice, or even like they were fighting to the last tooth and nail, you know, of like trying to get that last bit of freedom from the spring breakers to, you know, I have people on my timeline fucking taking the cheap flight out to places and just
right.
You know,
and being stuck. I have family stuck outside and they have no return date that's feasible right now.
Yeah.
And shit starts getting grim.
Yeah. It's super interesting to me. I just think as a culture, we've like the normalcy that escapism has become. That's one of the things that is super sad to me to kind of see, you know?
Wow. Yeah. I feel like it's like you said, like there's this revolution of self-facing that we're kind of like forced to have, and, you know, nature coming back. You know, so many people reporting just like wildlife reappearing and just like the quality of like air in China like getting better. And I could imagine New York is feeling that somewhat already, and just man, sometimes life decides that you got to chill out. A lot of people feel like this is like Jesus coming straight up. A lot of people feel like, yo, this is God like humbling all of us. Like, yo, we need to chill the fuck out. Like, if we keep going down this path, you know, the world is kind of doomed to a certain extent. So, like, for me, I mean, you know, I can entertain every perspective, and that. But the thing is that you have to make a choice at some point. And for me, my choice usually, what can I learn from this? And how can I be optimistic about where I'm at in my life right now and what the cards are that have been dealt? Because there's no better perspective to have than to be optimistic, at least to me. I don't know where in life is it not better to just do that and figure out what's the best, what's the highest potency of optimism. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, it's been a trip, but I think people have also just like, you also are forced to come to grips with, like you said, like not only like your escapisms, but then like your vices and your entertainment and what you fulfill yourself on and your relationships with people. But now you're like, damn, like I should have just looked up at the sun and been grateful for that. I should have like been able to appreciate just going outside and not feeling, because that's the thing, like I don't move out of fear. But even if you go on a train, like you feel people's like energies, just like how distant everyone is and alert. And that's not a world that we want to live in. So like I pray, you know, we have as least amount of casualties as possible, and we have the most amount of just like positive restarts in a lot of people's lives. You know, a lot of us needed it in one way. I feel like I needed it too, especially as a creative. You're like, I'm so caught up on my fucking emails and what deals are happening and what collabs are and are not, and the next good mix, and you know what I'm saying, all of this shit. But it's like, man, like, thank you for like sitting my ass down too.
No, I agree. I think there's a part of me that is happy in the sense that I think it reaffirms my belief in myself, because I've seen that what I'm doing now, that I do have the time to do things. And I'm not like beaten down by just the everyday work, you know, that comes along with making money on a regular basis. So I think it definitely brings a sense of confidence that I do feel like I can tackle anything I want. But you know what's interesting, man? What's kind of been fucking me up to a degree is like when you like wake up from a nap and like the few seconds after you wake up and like you don't like this isn't real, like you're not thinking about it for a second, you know what I'm saying? And then it like slowly starts to sink in, like, wait, shit is still happening. Stuff is very weird right now. Like we're still living in this crazy, scary time right now, you know? And it's like this weird like dichotomy. Or even like if I like go into like a project and I'm like working on something for a couple hours and I lose myself in it, when I kind of come back up for air, it's like, whoa, like life is still very heavy right now. You know what I mean? It's like this weird fucking thing.
Yes. I think that this is a time to reconnect with faith. Reconnect with nutrition. You know what I mean? And like, I feel like nutrition is like the biggest thing too. Like you got to make sure we lay off cookies and like the easy, there's a lack of physical activity that we all have to like kind of succumb by. You know what I mean? And it's like water, you know what I'm saying? Like tea, all of the, like these things that we are ingesting in our body are going to have a mental effect on us, a physical effect on us. And I think just like help us with our choices and like dealing with it, because at the end of the day, we are making the right choice by staying. Like you cannot be inside if you want to. You can go out and be reckless just as you feel like, you know what I'm saying? And maybe luck is on your side and nothing fucking happens and you just run around and do whatever the fuck you do. But I think that, bro, I guess, I don't know. We're both human beings going through this. And we're both like we work in fast moving industries. And I think, faith, man. I don't know. Faith and books. I feel like books are, we got the collection behind us, like books, you can talk into somebody else's story for a minute. You don't have to pay attention to yours.
Books definitely. I've been reading a bunch. I've been diving into this book that I had been like dragging ass on finishing, called Stillness is the Key by Ryan Holiday. He's like a stoic, so a lot of his like stoic teachings, a lot of philosophers and things like that. But it was interesting. I read a chapter, and it's funny how things kind of like hit you when they're supposed to hit you. And it was talking about Anne Frank. And how in her diary, it's funny, right? And in her diary, she talks about the tiny window that they had, like to be able to see outside, and that was like such a gift for her. Like she was able to get lost in nature just looking outside of that tiny window, and that was like something that helped her get through all of these things. And it talks about essentially, like stillness is being able to recognize all the beauty that's around you, because there is beauty in everything that you're looking at. You know what I'm saying? From the way that your books are positioned behind you, you know what I'm saying, to
Mm-hmm.
the way the sun is outside with the trees. If you're looking for it, you're gonna find something. And it is like the reminder that that is what true stillness is. True, observance of, I guess, the mind and your environment is being able to notice those things in the present moment. So I found that super interesting. It's funny how life kind of like makes you see certain things, at the right time, which I find interesting.
Yeah, it's like the that's the thing, man. Like the not knowledge continues
Yeah.
and paths continues, and because we're in it right now, we feel stunted by it. We
Right.
feel like there is a pause in our life to a certain extent. But
Mhm.
this isn't the first time you felt stunted in your life.
Right.
This isn't the first time you felt decisionless. This isn't the first time you felt like death is near. This isn't the first time you felt like I don't know what to do next to make myself feel good.
Right.
The circumstances are different, right? But for me, like the one of the like the books that I'm like finishing now finally is like Shoe Dog by Phil Knight,
Mhm.
who he's the creator of Nike.
Mhm.
And that's been the trip reading, because I'm just like, fuck, man, you have to just admire somebody's sheer willingness to take on losses
Mm.
with no clear foreseeable victory in the future,
Mm.
but believe in itself and the capacity that if you stayed the course, the path will open up and you get a little bit of wins here and there
Right.
that are strong enough to like hold you through the darkness. You know what I mean? And I think that that's just like the ill shit ever. That's like illest shit ever, bro.
Yeah.
Like who doesn't that to some way, shape, or form? I feel like everybody I look up to,
Yeah.
anybody that I admire has been through that. So it's like, what makes this time any different?
Right.
We all confined to our cribs. We all are now confined to like our homes and our rooms and the mess and the dirt under the table that you never swept up. But
Right.
like, this is also another trial for champions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, fuck, let's master solitude.
Mhm.
Yes, let's master sitting on the fucking couch until your ass hurts, and then one day being like, fuck this shit.
Right.
Like, let me whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and like I feel like for me personally, like my days have started to become even now like a bit more productive. You know what I mean? Like today we're doing this.
Yeah.
I was on a FaceTime studio session earlier. I'm like working on like music business stuff. Obviously, I'm pumping the book out, and I'm just like, yo, like, all right. And you see a lot of like innovation in this time as well. Like people's imaginations are challenged,
Yeah.
and their willingness up has not been, you know what I mean, been the final choice. Like you see like DJ like D Nice like on Instagram
Yeah.
Live, like, and making like what is it, like 150K or something like that?
Yeah,
Like,
and he had
I
everybody
don't know,
on
I'm not
there.
trying to
Yeah.
something like that. You know what I'm saying? You have artists and their followings being even more giving, and I feel like there's an appreciation of like artists and anybody in the entertainment industry in general. Like, oh shit, like we're demystifying this like cloud of fame and this cloud of like celebrity as different from you, and it's just like, no, motherfuckers is catching it. Doesn't matter if you got cloud or not. Like if you sick, you sick. It doesn't matter if you got cloud or not. You're in the house just like that other person.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I feel like that barrier is also like closing in, and like humanity is more aware of itself.
Yeah, I think the
I
layers.
don't know, bro. My brain works that way. You know what I'm saying? Like it
Nah,
just works that way.
and I agree, and I fuck with that perspective, because I think you are seeing like the layers being peeled away. You know what I'm saying? Like we got to this point of like, if you're just looking at people's social media feeds, like it being so carefully curated. You know what I mean? And even myself included, and throughout this whole thing, I've kind of just been like, fuck it at this point. I don't like care if something looks good with the other one, if a video that I posted looks a little grainy or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm just not caring. And I think you're seeing that a lot, even with different artists. Obviously with females, it's a little bit more of like a touchy subject for them. But I mean, you're seeing them, go on live with their hair in a bun and like, just fucking chilling, like just this is me.
Yo, what up?
Yeah, like embracing their imperfections, embracing that they're human, and I mean, optimistically, you're hoping that people come away with this feeling a lot more connected to one another, because we are, while we're not in person, touching and feeling each other, we are communicating so much more now, even if it's via social media. There still is that human element. I had posted something on my IG about, unfortunately my grandmother passed away during this whole thing.
That's right.
And, you know, I
Right.
had posted to talk about it just to make people aware that, you know, their reckless behavior is having an effect on people being able to get on with the important things in their lives that they do have to do outside of, you know, this whole thing. But one thing that came of that was just an outpouring of love. And I genuinely felt that
Wow.
energy. I genuinely
Wow.
felt like those
Wow.
positive vibes like touch me. You know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
I've always been like somebody who like I'd rather somebody not be like not send a text about like hey my condolences because it just kind of I feel like makes me a little bit uncomfortable and then like really keeps bringing up the hurt I guess to a
Yes.
degree.
Yes.
But
Yes.
me having to face it in that way and that me just seeing people that I haven't talked to in years, people that I don't know from, you know, beyond their screen name on their, you know, their username on Instagram, seeing the outpouring of love, seeing them taking the time to reach out, to write personal messages, to write, you know, to comment and these different things. It's like, I genuinely just felt connected to everybody. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And I think that we are seeing that, you know, whether it's everybody going live on Instagram and people just like hopping in and commenting and being super active with one another and people being a lot more revealing about who they are and what they do on their downtime and, you
It
know,
sounds like presence. Like
right.
for me, like correct me if I'm wrong, but like I'm sure you felt more love than just who was messaging and
Yeah.
commenting too. And it's like I feel like our prayers are resonating at a higher frequency because we're still, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there is a level of stillness that we by default have to practice. And now if somebody is going through like a painful emotion and you feel for them, like words don't necessarily I mean, I'm a rapper, so I believe you can say the right amount of words in the right way
Right.
and it'll cure the world. But even if somebody doesn't have the vocabulary, even if somebody doesn't have the right phrase, the sentiment is felt.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's the trip.
Yeah.
Like you said, like the worst thing you would want is to be able to be there for somebody and them not know that you at least had a word for them. You at least had a gesture for them. You could at
Right.
least feel for them in their time and help them come up. You know what I'm saying? Because being there for people isn't necessarily always going down with them and relating to their weakness. Sometimes it's like, yo, like my arms are strong. You could pull yourself up
Right.
on us. You know what I mean? And that's beautiful that you're able to feel this in this time too. Obviously, like my condolences and my heart goes out to
Thank you.
y'all. But at the same time, it's just like, man, like we're built for this. And you're built for this. Obviously, your family's built for this. And now your platform and the people who fuck with you, they're like, yo, like this dude isn't just the bearded guy with the vintage jacket I haven't seen since the 90s. You know what I'm saying? Now they're like, yo, this is a real fucking person.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's beautiful. Like
Yeah.
that's like the ultimate, that's the level that you kind of want to be operating, especially for me, you know, in a public space. Like, yo, I'm a fucking human being and I go through things just like all of us, and we are all here together as a race.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
love, bro.
I think it's amazing because it shows you who people truly are, and that's for the good of who they are or for the bad of who they are. You know what I mean? And I think that is something. It's almost like a cleansing this whole time period because you can really see who you should be fucking with and who you shouldn't be at this time. You know what I mean? Like because like in times of like you know panic and you know mass hysteria and uncertainty. And when you have to put people's well-being above the almighty dollar, you know, you really start to see like where people's true intentions lie. You know what I'm saying?
And it's also like people say like, in the worst case scenario of the world, what better role is it to be than the person that you can count on?
Right.
In trauma. And if a fire breaks out, what better person to be in that role is the one that's not afraid enough of the fire like everyone else is, but is willing to be the leader to safety and find the door.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And in this, I mean, that's obviously the more extreme, but in this, it's just like, man, like in times of solitude, whose energy can I depend on to add to solace, to bring me to optimism, to bring me to being able to be productive and make the best out of these moments? And it's like, who's there just because you just run into people every Tuesday because you both hop on the same thing, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
especially who's there in a period where like none of us can really do much for each other in form of like social currency or
we can't hug.
Right.
We can't hug anybody right now.
Yeah,
we can't
exactly.
Even
like you can't put anybody on at this point because there's nothing to fucking do right now. You know what I'm saying? Like so, you really see who's only talking to you at certain times. You know when it's convenient for their own intentions. And something else I was actually want to get your perspective on because I found it super interesting. I was reading that same book. Stillness is the key. and it was talking about AA. Like one of the 12 steps is succumbing to a higher power,
Wow.
which I didn't know. That was actually an interesting thing
I
to
did
me.
not know that. Yeah.
But they talk about, and it talks about how a lot of people fight that because they don't want to, I guess there's a level of ego involved for people who do have addiction problems that, they feel like they are in control, and it's hard for them to wrap their brain around somebody else or something else being in control. But it talks about that even if you've never been a God-fearing person, that you need some sort of guideline to live your life by, some sort of moral code, something that keeps you in check, that is bigger than yourself, bigger than, a human element, bigger than your parents or anything like that. You need something larger to follow. And they talk about how this is one of the most crucial steps of that whole thing.
Wow.
And I found it to be just super, super interesting, especially as somebody who is spiritual, but not necessarily religious. You know what I mean? And that's me personally. So I kind of I'm curious about what your perspective is on where do you fall on this whole kind of thing? That's a super heavy question.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, I believe that the ego is the distance between you and God. So the bigger ego you have, the bigger distance.
Right.
God is this context, a fluctuating word. I believe higher power, karma,
Right.
the universe, all of that good shit. Just as long as it's like an omnipotent feeling or whatever the case may be. But I think for me, I guess why that's important in the terms of like AA meetings, it seems, is that God is the connector and the leveling out and the thing that makes everything make sense and reveals how everything is tied together, reveals how everything affects itself. And so you realize like the thing that is alive isn't me, it's life. Life is the thing that's alive.
Right.
I am a component of life being life. You know what I mean? And you as a person, you're also life, and this tree is also life, and this room is also life. Like nothing is distinguished besides just like being a thing that is also a part of life. And my perspective when it comes to that, it's like the reason for me, I feel like I'd also say I'm more spiritual than I am like religious. But I definitely have found a lot of like cool things in every religion, you know what I mean, that I hold on to.
Yeah.
But when I connect to God and when I pray and when I'm focusing on myself, a lot of it is just for the awareness and for the wisdom of like how interconnected all of us are in ways that we're not even aware of. Like how thank God somebody is passionate about this microphone because eventually it got to you and it got to this conversation. Thank God for the graphic designer who's behind you who like decided, you know what, welcome to Phoenix, please look this way and this colorway. Now you've seen yourself in that person's imagination, you've related to that. And I don't know, man, I just don't distinguish that connection. But the ego puffs yourself up. And the ego is where that question of like, am I the only person that's really alive and is everything else just like bending at my will? And you know what I'm saying? Like the ego removes you from the fact that we're all in this together and we have no control over that anyway.
Right.
We're all in this together, whether you admit that we're all in this together or not. But the more you diminish the ego, the more you're connected to the heart of life, the more you're connected to the reason for life, which is life exists to keep improving. Like life exists to improve life for the next person that's living, even if it's just you tomorrow again.
Right.
You know what I mean? And at least for me, the more I diminish the ego in myself, whether that be an image base, whether that be like a notoriety base, whether that even be like me loving the things that I'm creative at and get notoriety for, whatever the case may be, the more I end up removing the ego, I feel like the more I end up being in a place of bliss and joy, and the more I'm able to actually feel like I'm a part of this world, as opposed to a part of the world that is a figment of my imagination that I created because at some point it felt like that was the best place to be at in life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I feel like I just end up getting better.
Right.
Like my words come out easier, my choice in beats come out better, the ideas that pop into my head feel pure, the outcome feels pure, I receive help out of nowhere.
Right.
you get guided by these movements. And for me, I always said that intuition is God's whisper.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that my intuition and just like, you get connected to everything that is, So I think like even like you asking that question and we were in this time now, like, that's all I'm.
Yeah.
Even if I'm just binge watching, like today, I'll just binge watch fucking Attack on Titan with my sister also today. If I'm reading, if I'm writing, whatever the case may be, I feel like that's like been the overarching feeling. Like, yo, like, look at us, look at God proving itself.
Right.
One way or another.
I like what you talked about, seeing so many things in different religions you can kind of take pieces of. One of my favorite like philosophers is Joseph Campbell. And he has like
the hero's journey,
exactly. Yep. And he breaks down like all these different things he takes away from each religion and like the beauty that is within that and the teachings you can learn from. I think it's interesting because I think a lot of times we as humans feel like we have to draw a line in the sand, for so many different things, whether it's politics or religion or all these things, like pick a side, and when we do that, we become so like our blinders are on, you know what I mean? And all we can see is like straight ahead. We can't see to the left of us. We can't see to the right of us or behind us. We're just straight ahead, just seeing that. And it almost becomes like picking a sports team. You know what I mean? Like people will fucking go so hard for their favorite sports team, ride or die for their favorite sports team. And that's what ends up happening when you feel like you have to pick this one side or the other, when the reality is where every religion is talking about a higher power. They're just calling it by a different name, and maybe have slightly different belief systems and things of that nature, but they're all, focused on giving you this sense of, maybe a moral code to be able to abide by, and the feeling that, what you do matters, the feeling that you have a reason for being here, a purpose. At the end of the day, that's what all of these things are. And even just calling, God the universe, and the universe works in mysterious ways. You can, take the universe out of that phrase and put God works in mysterious ways, Allah works in mysterious ways, all these different things. And I think the idea of
the way of the Tao,
right.
Like when people talk about Taoism, it's like, sounds like the Catholic God too.
Right.
Sounds like the God too. Sounds like,
absolutely.
Yes,
and you can't get, and like people get caught up on like the little intricacies of like the stories.
Everybody sees blue. That's all it is. We're all seeing the same blue.
Right. Exactly.
But I came up on blue through the Yankee fitted, and you know what I mean. And you came, yes, bro.
Yeah. It's like it's such an interesting thing, and it's like we're forced to be closed-minded in such a way that like then it makes people hate religion when you don't realize that it doesn't have to be the way that like your parents bring you to church, you're dragging you to church every Sunday or whatever it was when you were a kid. Like it doesn't. That's not the reality of what having a spirituality or believing in something higher than yourself. It has to be.
Yeah, I've learned to distinguish between people and their love, their empathy, their potential to be kind, and to respect life more than their political views, and their status in society, more than the amount of like the dollar amount in their bank accounts. So for me, like, even though I have my own perspective on like religion, you know what I'm saying, and the way I see religion and what I conform to and what I identify most with, I've never let that get in the way of learning something. And the more you know yourself, the more you can meet anybody in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm the type of person, I believe I can meet anybody in the world, and on the right day, with the right topic and the right weather, I can be anybody's friend. Like
I agree.
I believe there should be little to no. I don't know why look for something you disagree about somebody on and make that the most important thing. You know what I'm saying? Like that's such a waste of energy. Like our energy is so special. Like our like the mind, and when it makes a decision and sticks to it, it's such a powerful force. Like damn, I'm gonna direct that towards hating somebody, bro. Like you know what I'm saying? Like it's just.
No, it's definitely
it seems like the antithesis of life once again.
Right. I mean, I guess it's one of the flaws of being a human. I guess for certain people is the inability.
But people are down to it. But then we need individualism though too. Because then it's like if you weren't raised, you know what I'm saying, in Egypt, and this person wasn't raised in like Mayan ideologies, and this person wasn't raised in Chicago, I wouldn't know about cultures, and I wouldn't know about the world. And we get to meet the whole world through people. So.
No, absolutely.
At the same time, man, it's a trip. It's a trip. But now the world feels smaller.
Mhm.
And now, because everybody's posting their, like, the first thing I'm gonna do when I get out, and then
Right.
it's just dancing videos, and the first
Yeah.
thing I'm gonna do, and as soon as this person comes on, and the first concert, and can't wait to go to the bar, and
Right.
parks are shutting down, can't wait to like be around 11 people because we can only be around 10 or less.
Right.
Right? It's just like, man, like, wow, what a reflection, like
Mhm.
what a gift, and I pray for those, because I think everyone assumes that everyone is okay,
Mhm.
and that on paper it's like, yeah, you need money, and the person next to you, yep, I need money too. But there are people out there that are not voicing their opinions on the economic state of this issue. There are people that are not voicing their opinion on the funds allocated towards rent, because
Mhm.
like towards renting, towards food, towards just like overall safety. Like there are people who can't afford to get sick. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? And I feel like we've also shown a lot. We like the cracks in the government, the cracks in the way that like political structures have like formed our society. When everything is up and running, you can kind of like you can throw away the screams that feel like whispers in the top
Right.
of Congress. But now it's kind of just like, man, like there's an outrage, and it's only going to get worse in that case. And I feel like that's also, if that's something, like my heart is with the families who can't really afford food and are struggling, and
Mhm.
don't really know where to get the money from to survive in these times. But hopefully they all stay strong. We all stay strong. I say we.
Yeah.
Hopefully we all stay strong, and we can like there's an obvious need for change and a restructuring, and like the way our laws and our system is set up, because
Yeah. I mean,
so much people not taken accounted for.
it's like you were talking about in the literal sense of like finding all the dust and dirt that you've been ignoring under the bed and things like that. In like, in that being an analogy for life and society, it's like we're now forced to face all the shit
Same,
we've been, sweeping under the bed and like under the couch for decades at this point. It's interesting.
right? No, it's a trip. But what's been making you happy though? Like where have you been able to find joy? Like outside of just being able to find something to concentrate on or read,
Right.
like
Um,
what's
I,
bringing you happiness, bro?
I mean, I think it's interesting to see people coming together in so many ways, even if it's just something like I'm seeing all the people around me like really forcing themselves to get creative. You know what I mean? Like whether it's like DJ friends of mine, like trying to organize a phone call, we all just get together and like they're all throwing ideas around of what they could be doing to collaborate and stuff like that, and that's just infectious. That energy is infectious. To see people, I think, taking the step to speak out against certain things that they're seeing, to see others trying to raise money for people who are in need, to see people, even like my girl's dad does construction, and he had a lot of those masks, and he made it a point to go and donate a bunch of them to the hospital, and without
That's
being
dope.
asked to, you know what I mean? Like to see that kind of stuff, like as little as it is, I think you're just seeing, people really take accountability and want to do better, want to push themselves to do good, and I think even and outside of that, I think it's somebody said this, and I can't remember who it was. It was like I think it was a DJ group, and they were talking about, it's funny how they were talking about this amongst, I guess, like their very successful like touring DJ friends, and they were like,
Yeah.
this is like set us all back to that point before we were successful in doing this for a living. It like brings us back to being in our parents' basement almost. You know what I mean? Like that same feeling of like we just have all the time in the world to try and create and like stay busy and fall into the things that we love doing. You know what I mean? Like they're not on the road. They're not doing this for, cut and pasting the same show every day and like trying to find
Yeah,
the
yeah,
newness
yeah.
in it. It's like they're there and they're just like waking up like, all right, what do we want to do today? And it's like the same. It's like, how do I come up with a creative idea now to engage, people and make them, pay attention to what I'm doing? It's like you're setting yourself back to like the reason why you fell in love with whatever it is that you're doing. Um,
Mm.
and it
Oh,
definitely is like an amazing perspective to think about, and it's something that I found myself, outside of like doing stuff to keep myself busy. It's also like I'm just diving into shit that I find interesting, and like with no sort of like financial gain in sight. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the toughest part, where
Facts.
it's like when you're both business minded and creative, whenever you try to create something, you're thinking, how can I like make this,
Of course. Yes,
a
yes, yes.
success financially as well as creatively, or for my
Hmm.
brand or whatever it is. But now it's like, at this point, it's like even if I made like I don't know, a cool painting on, and I want to sell it, I'm not going to the post office to ship it out right now. So like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, there is no thing for me to be monetizing. It's like, I'm just waking up and diving into like whatever it is that I feel like doing, whatever I've been putting off. And I think there is like this childlike joy that comes along with doing that, you know?
Yeah.
And like the stillness to like try something and like know that you don't have to necessarily be good at it right away. And like, you have the time to invest in getting good at it, because all we have is time right now, you know, even like
Yeah.
cutting up videos and things like that. It's like that always, like, I had the program on my computer for months, you know, before all this happened. And I was always like, oh, I try, and then I get frustrated and I'll just walk away and be like, let me do something more productive with my time. And now it's like, all right, I have to sit there and actually do it. And then like, I found myself getting lost in it for hours, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it's like,
Damn.
I'm enjoying it. It's like therapeutic to me now, you know? So it is like that childlike wonder of like when I really was getting to just doing the shit that I like doing, and it didn't matter if anybody was watching or if I was making money off it, you know? So that's something I found myself like getting lost in. That's been super just like amazing to kind of feel, you know?
Damn. That's powerful, bro. I'm
Yeah.
like smiling the whole time because that's the thing that's been making me the happiest.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a certain sense of just like, man, like human beings are incredible because we find ways to just be happy.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of reasons to be down,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of moments most likely in our days where we allow ourselves to feel that. But fuck, bro, like even seeing like in Italy, I mean, it's been the biggest outcry of
Yeah.
just like everybody on their balconies and just singing together. It's just like we
Right.
can't get enough of each other, bro.
Yeah.
Like we can't get enough of like life. We can't get enough of like the human interaction and
Yeah.
the experience. And it's like you said, like as an artist, man, like getting into this, like I never wanted anything more than to like make something that somebody felt had joy from and
Yeah.
felt seen from and felt pleasure from and felt like the desire to share with somebody else and bond with that person over it. Because that's what I did with all of my favorite shit.
Right.
That's what I did with all my favorite films, my favorite paintings, my favorite songs, my favorite books, whatever the fuck it is. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, wow, like that's been one of the things I've been holding on to a lot too, just like my optimism and my hope for tomorrow, because we're gonna come out of here recharged, man. Like I do not think we're not going down, bro.
Yeah.
And there is a revolution happening, even if it's amongst a smaller amount of people than the word revolution normally entails. Like
Mhm.
revolution normally feels like millions. I hope so,
Yeah.
but I think that we're that this is the time for like the breeding of just like winners on a whole different level of priorities rearranged. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like, yo, like, yeah, you're allowed to get rich. Don't get it twisted. Like,
Right.
you should try to monetize, because at the end of the day, we need to pay our bills too the same way. Like we live in a world where that's going to get monetized in one way, shape, or form. But
Right.
for like adults to be touching back in with their like childhood dreams and their windowless and timeless, like plunging into the things that are bringing them pleasure right now for hours, like that's the closest thing we get to heaven, I feel, you know,
Yeah.
the present. So it's just like, you know, wow, I'm just proud of us at the same time too. You know, people are trying. There's some dickheads out there, obviously,
Yeah. Of
but
course.
like
There's always gonna be, but
a lot of people are stepping it up. You
yeah.
know,
I think
wow,
it's times like this make it very obvious what is important to you, you know,
yeah,
and it makes you just really dive headfirst into those things and really just look at them in a different perspective, you know, like even
yeah,
like little shit. Like my girl came and like surprised me on Sunday, like I didn't expect her to come over, and like bro, it was awesome, you know what I mean, and like that, and like yeah,
word,
yeah, and it's like that, you know, you take little shit like that for granted, where it was like, oh, we're gonna hang out every week, blah blah, you know what I'm saying, but like to have that connection, to have somebody there that you care about and you appreciate it, you know what I mean, like this made me really just appreciate having that, because you realize how important that is. Like you see the videos online of like elderly people not being, you know, like talking to each other through windows now, and like all these little things, and it really puts into perspective what is truly important. You know, like I've been talking to my mom every day on the phone, you know, and like there would be times before that
yeah,
we might go a
yeah.
couple days, you know, without talking and things like
Mm-hmm,
that, you
mm-hmm.
know, or making sure you say I love you before you get off the phone, you know, with somebody that you care about, you know.
Right, right.
Um all like
Oh, yeah, there's been a lot of I love yous in the text
yeah,
messages and shit, like, and not even
exactly.
no cheesy shit, like for real, like
Yeah.
yo, like
There's
come
none
on.
there's nothing wrong. There's no point in being too proud, because you know it's very obvious that these moments are fleeting, you know, and And this time that we have together, this time we have here can be taken away from us just like that. And we all know that. We all hear that all the time, that tomorrow
Yes.
isn't promised, and all these
Yes.
different things. But when you experience something like this where, your everyday regular freedoms are taken away, and it's scary to just go outside and go to the grocery store, you know, you really are forced to face your mortality, you know what I mean? And face the temporariness of this life, and really realize, like, if you feel like you touched on this earlier, like, we really are not in control, we can do
Hmm.
our best to be prepared for moments as they approach and as they happen. But the reality of the situation is, like, this whole thing is every life is so much bigger than all of us, as great as any of us think we are, or as large of an impact as we plan on having, we still will be a blip on the radar when it comes to, if the totality of human existence on this planet Earth, when it's all said and
Hmm.
done. And not to say that what we do is to be taken lightly, because I do believe in, like, a ripple effect of, like, one person might hear this and be influenced and influence somebody else, and it continues on. But it also puts into perspective just how, like, limited this time is that we have here, how appreciative we should be of all the things, no matter how big or small they are in our life. And we hopefully now things like this will make us recognize that, and really take the time to be still, and prioritize the things that truly, are important. I guess that's the overly optimistic perspective and hope, and that we're
No,
both kind
it's
of
true,
talking
bro.
about.
The only, it's like they say, the only constant is change, and the only place we can actually be in is the now. And when you appreciate the movement of
Mhm.
life, but then when you also appreciate the power of, like, being present, and the fact that your future, your, like Dramos in 10 years from now is going to reap all the benefits, or
Mm.
all of the wrongdoings of Dramos today.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And we should love our future selves just as much as we love our current selves
Yeah.
now. That's where you get a lot of, like, overindulging of, like, media and vices and food and whatever the case may be. It's like, yo, like, damn, do I really want to, like, I should probably look up for 250-pound Radamiz. Like, I don't want that guy to be out there feeling bad. You should
Right.
just drink a little bit more water today, bro. You know
Yeah.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
and look out for our future selves too, because it's like you said, like, I don't even have the time to think about the beginning and the end of, like, human existence and when that'll happen. But
Yeah.
I do know that I can make somebody's today feel good, and I
Right.
do know I can feel accomplished out of today.
Yeah.
But on a
Absolutely.
lighter note, yo, you been listening to music? Like, have you been even, like, bumping shit, like,
Yeah.
outside of what you create?
What about, yeah? The weekend? I listened to the weekend.
Okay, well, I haven't
Um,
checked it out yet. What you thought?
I fuck with it. It's like very 80s. Like, I just like how whenever he comes out, he brings a new vibe. Like, everything follows a
Hmm.
specific theme, from, like, his new persona that he adapts, like his physical appearance,
Hmm.
to the way the music sounds and everything. Like, I love the fact that it's all very theatrical. It's all like this. He builds, like, this world. Um,
Yo,
so that's what I've been listening to that, and just kind of taking it all in. I know J Balvin put out an album. I listened to a little bit of that.
hmm.
I'm trying to think who else I like, if I dove into anybody else's album heavy over this time either. Those are like the two I want to say, to be perfectly honest with
I
you.
haven't been that interested in music like that, but Jay
Yeah,
Electronica shit is hot. Did you listen to
yeah,
it?
I did listen to it. I was never
Did you
like
care about it? Because a lot of people are hating on him, and I'm
it.
just, like, mad at the world. But, like, what you thought?
No, I think it's an amazing project, and I say that as somebody who never, like, really thought twice about Jay Leck, aside from, like, the
Uh huh.
Kendrick song. You know what I'm saying? Like that.
Yeah.
You know,
Control. Oh my God,
yeah.
the Kendricks. That's a Big Sean
I know,
song,
whatever.
bro.
Yeah, but Kendrick, come on now, come on now. And Jay Leck, I think
uh,
he had the last verse on that, so he, like, had he had to go
and he
after.
bodied that
I
shit though.
know,
It's
but
just that Kendrick did what he did
right.
before. Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, I mean, so for me, that is, like, where my historical J Electronica, like, thing,
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
begins and ends. But I did
Yeah.
listen to it, and it was dope. I think you have two people, obviously, who are some of the most gifted to ever do it, coming
Yeah.
together and doing it. And I think, as I've gotten older, I appreciate more of that stripped down, like, old school hip hop, like this, as far as the
Fact,
production
fact.
goes, and all that kind of stuff. And I love it. I love the back and forth that they have going on. I love they're talking
Hmm.
about real shit,
Yeah.
and definitely, like, real perspectives. And I know that there's a lot of people who are shitting on Jay, saying that, or Jay Electronica, that Jay-Z bodied him on his own project.
which he didn't. But like, here's what I'm saying. So here's my take real quick on Jay because Jay Electronica is in my top 10.
Okay.
And the reason why he's in my top 10, one, it's better in tune with the Infinite. It's his record he dropped a while ago. That shit just put him in my top 10. Just in general. I don't think people have energy like Jay Elec. And even today, I was thinking about him. I started watching the old Jason Goldwatch videos. I don't know if you ever checked those out. Where he's just like traveling the world and looks like fucking OD. Like one of them is like an Exhibit A snippet and whatever the case may be. But I was even telling Law about this, his manager. I'm like, yo, like the people who don't get it and the people who are hating, I realized like a lot of the times come from you looking at something in a very finite and specific way. Like the fact that Jay Electronica doesn't drop for 11 years, 12 years, whatever, and decides to pull up with an album and Jay-Z's on half of it is a flex of its own as an individual.
Right.
And I don't look at things as how much is mine, how much is yours, like when did it come, what does it pair up to, and in context with what the world is at.
Yeah.
I look at it like, yo, like what did you say out of your mouth?
Mm-hmm.
What were your decisions, and did you live life according to who you are? And with Jay Elec, the craziest thing about Jay Elec is that people for some reason have always wanted him to be like this. Every week a new song, and then every year and a half another album. And it's like even his engineer from the earliest days, it's like, yo, Jay Electronica has never rapped like how y'all wanted him to be consistent.
Yeah.
If anything, this is him being true to himself the entire time.
Right.
And for you to get on the songs with Jay-Z and you're talking about when I looked in the mirror, all I see was flaws. When you know what I'm saying? Like critiquing yourself, like battling yourself, but then you have like knowledge of self rhymes, and you're still in touch with your like New Orleans culture, and you're still on some like, I don't know, declaration of your experiences as a man. And Jay-Z could be next to you, and you could just do it whenever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
And man, I don't know. I think it's a powerful display of like individualism, and like you do it whenever the fuck you feel like it. You put out what you love, and you put love into it. Because that's the other thing I felt in the album. Like I love Jay-Z too. He's obviously top 10 for me as well. But I think what I felt the most was like a passion to create something that felt important to those that knew this was important.
Right.
And that was like delivered to me. You know what I'm saying? Like I felt the power, I felt the self-belief, I felt the overcomingness, and I felt like, yo, I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want, and I'll holla at y'all later. You know what I mean? Peace again.
Right,
you know
right,
what I mean? And he might never drop again if you don't feel like
I mean,
like, he doesn't have to. And I always said that even before, like, you don't gotta drop if you don't want to, because fuck everybody. It's about what brings you joy, you know? So,
no, I agree. I mean, I think it says something. Jay is rapping like we haven't heard him rap in a long time on this album, I think, too.
I feel like he's rapping like that forever. 444 that's all Jay shit.
Yeah,
I think what it is that he just sounds like the more he's at it, he's perfected. I keep living and I keep finding ways to, and I'm empowered by it, and then I can put it in a rhyme. You know what I mean? But Jay like sounds like that to me too. Yeah. To me, it sounds like, yo, like you get to keep up with somebody who has 25 years in his business on top to a certain extent, and you know.
I think, but I do think I like Jay is at a point now that I think is cool to hear him rap from a perspective of he's gonna put it in your face that he can shit on you because he's rich, but at the same time, and then tell you why he's that doesn't even matter and show you his actions. Basically, like the NFL verse, essentially, when he's talking about he makes more money than all of them, yet he's still doing this. It's like he's like not being unafraid to like call you out on like the bullshit you're trying to call him out on, and like rub it in your face and be like, you know what, I'm not gonna play like, I'm not gonna be coy, I'm not gonna be give you a PR polished answer about this. Like, I'm rich than all of them, so if you think that I'm signing this for a money grab, you're an idiot, and like and show what I mean, and like have the facts to back it up. So I like.
The thing, Jay has always been terrible at rolling out big ideas right away. Like the same shit with Tidal, and he regretted that. But I think Jay has earned enough currency in our culture to know, like, even if you judge it, even if it looks weird, even if you're like, oh, if I was Jay-Z and I had that power, like, this is what I would do, like, he's earned enough for you to be like, you know what? I'm going to shut the fuck up. I'm going to let this shit play out. I'm going to give it some years, and then I'll give it a thought. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's basically what he judged too, because I think a lot of people just felt that way. I don't know why people would link that to money. I never thought of it as a money play. More
it's this fake wokeness,
like power dynamic thing. But,
it's this fake wokeness that people have. It's this need to have an opinion. And I mean, even like touching on like touching on the Kaepernick thing, his point of what he did and then what he's fighting for now are two completely different things. And I just don't see how the world doesn't see that. And then they're gonna try to ostracize Jay-Z when he is now implementing the very thing that Kaepernick claimed he was fighting for originally.
That was missing in the originally, yeah.
Because this is what it is. Kaepernick has pulled like the ookie dook on
but
people.
It's always going to look ugly as it goes down.
But it's because Kaepernick has painted himself to be this, and this is going to be a controversial perspective, but he's painted himself to be this martyr. But as time has gone on, the message has become more and more about Colin Kaepernick. It's become more and more, oh, I'm being blackballed. When originally, your whole thing about this whole thing was, I want to bring attention to the injustices happening to black and brown people at the hands of the police. Well, now, and now you have somebody like Jay-Z stepping in and also talking about the diversity issues within the NFL and all these different things. So now that message is being heard, but you're not happy because you don't have a job. When you not having a job is a byproduct of being a quote unquote martyr, it's like going to a protest.
Because that's the thing. He should be allowed to play, and I feel like he will one day if he feels like.
I agree that he should be allowed to play, but I don't agree with that.
I see what you're saying. One doesn't have to do with the other. It's like the beginning of this, like if anything, like. I mean, if you really want to go into it, Jay's presence with the NFL to a certain extent is a response. It is a call to action, and it is a positive way to flip the establishment. But it's going to be ugly because you just rapped about it on this joint, and you're black as well. And now the NFL and its entire organization is deemed, insensitive towards the issues of what's affecting our communities on a day-to-day basis. And it's just like, all right. But I don't know. I feel like you have people who are going to take the hits, and hopefully people learn from Jay's mistakes as much as they gain from Jay's wins too. Because at some point, Jay-Z being part of the NFL and deciding the Super Bowl and what talent gets placed, and just like that brand alignment shifts the paradigm, even on the most like subconscious level.
Absolutely.
And somebody will pick up the baton. Like if Jay fucked up or not.
Yeah. But
I don't give a fuck. I care about it. What does this spark exactly?
Absolutely.
What does this spark in people's minds? And Collins definitely succeeded in that.
Absolutely.
He caused an entire revolution. He caused an entire like mass media awakening.
Right.
And he brought out a lot of people's voice and the tones in their voices and the consistency.
100%.
That maybe lacked before. So
but then,
like,
for
I
me,
love both.
For him to come out and condemn Jay-Z though on that, to me is then hypocritical.
I feel like that's personal too. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
we weren't there because they had their conversations. They spoke.
Bro, to me, it's like, all right, I'm gonna go to this protest. I'm gonna stand on the front lines. I'm gonna get maced, and then I'm gonna sit there and complain about getting maced. And turn that into the issue, ignoring the thing I was protesting about in the beginning. It's like, well, getting maced by the police is fucked up. It shouldn't happen. But I knew stepping foot on the front lines, there might be some sort of byproduct of that. You know what I'm saying? Like
repercussions.
Exactly. You
and you kind of have to be down to take that on the chin.
Exactly. And that I can't turn me getting maced into now being the bigger issue than the original thing I was being there on the front lines fighting for. And that's sort of my thing. I think I'm not gonna say names, but being somebody in media, hearing conversations of other people throughout the entertainment industry, what they say behind closed doors. They don't agree with the way Kaepernick is acting right now, but they are too scared to publicly say it because it is this thing that it's like, oh, now you are going against one of your own, and it turns into that the same way they said about Jay-Z and ostracized him for that. People are scared to speak out against that, even if they do feel like Kaepernick is becoming something else now.
Even outside of specifically the Collins situation, even outside of the Jay-Z situation, it's all about tone. It's all about the verbiage, and it's about also the end result, right? Like for me, and if you have a close homie to you, if you have somebody in your perimeter, and even if you don't, even if it's something like this conversation, but you have love for the person, and you're aware of them being a human, and you're aware of their capacity to make mistakes, and you feel like you have not only their best interest in mind, but you have thought it out where it's like, nah, like, I care about your future. I care about your future as much as I care about you hearing me. Even if it isn't on a public platform, you shouldn't feel fearful to criticize somebody for the better. You shouldn't feel fearful to share your opinions in a constructive way, because I don't need to be a dickhead and everybody around me knows I'm being a dickhead, but
Right.
nobody tells me because they're too
Right.
scared of like how I'm going to view their friendship and how we're going to view our relationship
And
from
that
here on
doesn't mean
out
I
and what
hate you either.
opportunities may have. It doesn't.
Right?
Of
Like
course not. If
me,
anything, it means you love me.
exactly.
If anything,
Me critiquing you
if
doesn't mean I
anything,
hate
it's
you.
like, yo, I love Colin, so
Right.
let me go ahead and if I have his number, or if I'm in the perimeter enough to be like, yo, like let's go chop it up. So like
Right.
for me with the Jay and Colin thing, I'm not in either circle, but I bet there's a bit of that. I bet there's a bit of somebody telling the other person their truth and it rubbing off more into other ways than what the original cause was.
Yeah.
But I open it even outside of that shit. Like we should promote like holding each other accountable and holding each other's best version of ourselves accountable. And the people around you are responsible too. You know what I'm saying? So we need to shift in that. And the media too. Like I know like Joe Budden always goes through it because he shares his opinions, but he's kind of, sometimes he says it more rude than he needs to be about whatever his takes. But I do think you need people out there being honest about what they love. And if you're honest about what you love, then you're going to end up being honest about what you don't really
No, I agree.
Too, so.
And I think I
promote that shit, honestly. You don't have to subscribe to other people's anger either. You can just respect somebody's
no, absolutely. You can, constructively criticize something. You can, ask somebody to expound upon.
But I feel you though. This flaw. Been flaws.
I mean, and also I think one thing that bothers me is I think what he did, what he stood up for, is absolutely amazing, and we have seen change as a result. We are having these conversations as a result, which is huge.
Yeah.
But what I will say, I wish we would hear his voice more. Like he's nowhere to be found. You know what I mean? It's like he doesn't speak out publicly.
I guess it feels like his actions speak out through. I mean, I feel like a bit of that is going to end up being exposed at some point.
Yeah.
Because at some point you're not going to never talk about it and whatever the case may be. And a lot of the times, I mean, at the end of the day, this is a sport that he loved. This is a life that he lived and he was famous for and successful for and known for. And he did put that on the line. And it's like, I don't know if you've ever been in this place, but you can make the right choice but still feel the repercussions of them.
Absolutely.
And you know what I'm saying? Like you can, like, if there's a girl that you gotta break up with, but you're like, yo, like now you feel bad. Or there's a homie that you gotta stop answering the phone for, and it's the best decision, but you still run into them, and you're like, yo, like whatever the case may be. And I know, like that's the thing. Human life and this experience isn't so finite that like you make a decision and. So I'm sure he probably feels just as empowered and just as like in belief of what he stood for, but there's things that come with it that you gotta like hold on to and take ownership of at the same time, like you said. And I don't know, that shit is hard too. You know what I mean? Like that shit can feel back. You know what I mean? But I believe for me, I leave my stance on it. It's like, yes, let's all correct each other. Yes, there's gonna be flaws. And especially like, I mean, at least somebody decided to stand up and like say change is necessary and was willing to like deal with the repercussions after. And if you really go fuck with that person, then you better go help them get back up and tell them, yo, like you did this right. It's like your boys. Like if your boy's wrong in public, you don't tell him in public. You fight the person with him, and then later you're like, yo, you fucked up.
Yeah, you pull them aside and have that conversation. Nah, I agree. I mean, let's end on like a positive note though. I mean, you just put out, or you got your book pre-order out, right?
Oh yeah, it's right here.
You have the actual book? Yeah, pull it out.
Yeah, it's right here, bro. I'm not showing the pages too much, but it's a beautiful piece of work, bro. Like,
it's fire.
You know what I'm saying? I got a couple of poems in this bitch. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how good it looks, but man, it's self-published.
How tough
you
was that?
You said you copied one, right?
Yeah, definitely copied one. Is the pre-order up?
Oh yeah. Yeah, the pre-order's up on my bio now.
I got you. Say less, I'll do it after this. Gotta support, of course. Well, I mean, how much of a pain in the ass was though? As somebody who hopes to write a book one day.
Ridiculously. Yeah. Ridiculously. You know what I'm saying? Like for me, thank God I have the genius that is like my boy Sam Lindenfeld. I have my homie Theo at Paradigm Publishing who helped consult with the thing, and then we got the publishing house over in Berlin, Outer Space. But this was my baby before the album dropped, like months in advance. I have videos of like the initial cover arts of every song being created, and all the like the book also serves as like handwriting to like the collaborators on the album. A lot of them made it into the final, which is like them writing their own lyrics out. And man, it's family photos, it's my photos, it's like new pieces of art for me, it's new pieces of art from Sam, and it's been a process, bro. It's been about a year, something like that. And then we put up our own bread. Yeah. And this is just like, for me, I look at it as like a lot of people drop vinyls and a lot of people just drop like extra content with their album. Like, let me go and put out a fucking book. If you fuck with me and if you fuck with my story, and even if you don't and you just share it and you can't afford it right now because we're in these times, then obviously, but I wanted to just give something a little bit more special to those that rock with me. And I made sure I put a lot of my love and my culture and my identity and my perspective on just like how the game should be. Because I look at it, and Sam does as well. Like, it's about like handing. Sometimes you have to hand your business card to the future. You can't just always wait for the shit to pop up.
Right.
And there's been like, even in making the album, even in the clothes that I make, even if they end up being one of one or not with the homies or something like this, I'm like, yo, I'm not gonna fucking wait until I'm like 25 years in the game to make my own book. Like, I'm gonna do this shit now. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna let motherfuckers know, like, oh, this dude, he's serious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had to eventually stop being scared about the capacities that I am as an artist, and not just like be confined to what I get complimented on the most. You know?
What do you think was scarier? Is putting out the album or putting out the book?
I think by default it ends up being the album, but this book has been a different type of experience because you put thousands of dollars up.
Yep.
And you're betting on I resonated.
Mm-hmm.
You're betting on, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the album is going to keep existing, but the book, there's a limited amount that we made, also that we can just afford to create.
Right.
And you're basically betting on, like, if somebody's listening to, like, if I could get thousands of plays, I get thousands of plays a day on the album, right? But the book is a specific amount available.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically just like, man, if you love what you heard for real, and if you love what I'm doing for real, I guess prove it.
Yeah,
I guess. But I look at him, I don't. That's trippy. You know what I mean? I haven't even had time to really even think about it.
Well,
you know, but
I'm sure that has to be.
It's just a gamble, and yeah. But it's also, I look at it more so just like beauty and expansion of self, and just like, you know, yeah.
Well, I'm sure there has to be. I asked that question because I think as a rapper, people know, you know, what you bring to the table, right? But now you step into something different, and it's like, oh, you know, the immediate things like the motherfucker thinks he's an author now. You know what I'm saying? Like, that anybody out there who might have a negative connotation or might just want to hate for the sake of hating, this is like, you have to prove yourself in a way that you probably haven't had to a degree in a while now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to prove yourself.
Well, then you also got to just hold the book and be like, oh, this is crazy.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, for me, it's like, I'm just tired of being confined to the chains I put on myself, bro. Like, you know what I mean? And I've always wanted to release poetry books. I've always wanted to release art books. I've always wanted to make custom clothes. I've always wanted to do interviews and speak consistently outside of just on wax, and then everything that I do with music. And, you know, for me, I believe in like the expression itself. I believe in like doing everything to the best of your ability, especially when you decide to try to do it to the best of your ability. And for me right now, this is the best of my ability. You got to touch the book. You got to see the colors. You have to, like, I made sure all the details are in there, all of the small nuances are from the album and just like my life. And I also don't ever plan on being this open with my past ever again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't mean I'm not going to be open with my present and wherever I'm at in the future, but it's just like, yo, like, I'm basically betting on the fact that I live and I'm here to tell the tale.
Yeah. And
the book is another example of like the fact that I exist.
Yeah.
So if people can support it, it's beautiful. We definitely have some people already copying, and I'm sure it'll sell out at some point. But for me, it was about, it's more so like that, you know, like, nah, I fucking exist, and I'm going to go out there. And if I can make it into your living room, your bookshelf or whatever, and it just makes you feel a little bit cooler, you know what I mean? And connected to me, because the reality is the majority of the people who listen to me, I'll never be able to meet. So here's me, you know.
Right. Nah, it's dope. Shameless plug, brother. It's your podcast. Where can people pick it up?
Facts. Yeah, www.radamiz.com. It's Radamiz. And then look at the other shit. I mean, I try to make everything I do as I can. So there's more shit out there for you to explore.
Nah, it's dope. I mean, I think I want people to realize that it's tough as a creative to keep putting yourself in new situations and new opportunities to fail. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it's one thing if, you know, to keep putting out records, you know, you have a following at that point, you know, you have a blueprint to a degree. Maybe your one record might not be as good as another one. It might not be as praised by the public, but to a degree, it still is going to have at least a baseline quality. It's going to meet a certain expectation, you know, the baseline of it.
Of course, yeah.
But whenever you jump into a new project, a new endeavor that is outside of what you are immediately known for, you are putting yourself out there to fail in a new way that you've never done, because this is a new endeavor. You know, you can only prepare but to the best of your ability. And that is a scary thing. I don't think people I don't think people realize that like every time somebody tries something new and does something like it's scary, you know, because you don't know what the reception is going to be. You know, you have your baseline expectations, like I said, when it comes to like something you've been doing for a minute, like
Yeah.
you know who your core fans are. They're gonna fuck with like the music and things like that. But now challenging them to follow you on a different journey, on a different perspective, on a different platform is a scary thing, you know. So kudos to you, man, for taking the risk and just kind of not allowing yourself to get too comfortable and just keep bringing these ideas to life, you know.
Yo, I couldn't have said it better, bro. But a lot of it, like I said, like for me, I'm motivated by like love. I'm motivated by where I feel like I'm limited too. And that's
Mm.
the ill part. Like once I realize I have some kind of like restriction, whether it be like, a cadence or like you said, like a project, even something like this, like forever people have been telling me, yo, Rad, just get in front of the camera and just talk. Like who cares?
Right.
And the biggest thing everybody's been saying so far, like I know our views aren't ridiculous, but I'm just like, all right, word, like people are starting to tune in. The biggest thing people are
Yeah.
saying is like, yo, like do not stop this literally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like keep striking because what y'all saying and the tone and the content that you're putting out, it all makes sense and
Yeah.
it's all this. It's all in the right light. So, you know, peace to God, peace to like the people rocking with me. And regardless, like I said, like even if somebody can't afford it, because everybody can't afford $40 just for like a book, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? But even if like I've already started getting the responses of just like, all in a ill complimentary way, but also just like in a oh shit, like there's more work to do and
Yeah.
there's new ceilings being unlocked and hopefully that's doing it for other people too, even if you don't give a fuck about that I dropped the book or not, you know?
Right. Right. Nah, it's inspiring, man. I love to see it. So I gotta give you your flowers. Shit.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate you, bro.
Of course, episode 4, bro. First one from the
Episode
lockdown.
4. Yes, yes,
This is
yes.
gonna be our new norm for the time being, man. It's and you know what? Not even looking at it in that perspective that we can't be in a studio. We got to look at it from the perspective of we're lucky that technology has allowed us to do it in this way that we don't have to stop doing what we want to do. You know, because it's like I said to you in the text when you asked me if I was if I was sure I was up for it. I said, this is therapeutic for me. You know, to be able to just talk
Yeah.
and have these conversations. So positive side, grateful that somebody thought of this fucking technology, thought of this app that we're using, thought of this
Exactly,
mic
bro.
and all these
Yes.
things that give us the opportunity to keep, this consistency going and this normalcy and like do the things that feed our soul consistently,
Nah, yo, love to this, love to all of our moments, all of our listeners, and even if you don't even know First Generation Talks exist, peace to you. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
absolutely.
All right, so we in this together, bro.
All right, brother. Next week, episode 5. We'll keep it rolling.
All right, peace.
Peace.